Hello everyone! In today's video, I will show you how to craft different sets of forest ruins. Or maybe you will prefer it in the middle of the jungle. Or maybe you will prefer no ruins at all. Or maybe you will prefer a simple plain. You might also use it as a camp. Or maybe you will prefer a set in the middle of the woods. Or you might prefer a set in the middle of the mountains. As you can see, those terrain pieces will be super modular, but at the same time there is no risk of knocking over the decorations. For this build you will need some XPS Foam for the stoneworks, and for the bases themselves I will use some EVA Foam. Alternatively, it's also possible to use XPS Foam for the bases. Next, you will need some decorative sands and granules, as well as some static grass. And of course, you will need different kind of trees. You can find some cheap ones on Amazon. The trunks are not the best, but we will see later in the video the tips to make them better looking. Next, you will need some washers, or any piece of metal. And you will also need some magnets. For each item that you want to be modular, you will need one magnet. Next, you will need some Tacky Glue. The next item is not mandatory, but it will help if you have access to a hot glue gun. You will also need some paints. You will only need one shade of brown, one shade of grey, and one shade of white for this build. For your ease, you will find some direct Amazon links to all the stuff I'm using in this video. For the basis, I'm using some EVA Foam because the XPS Foam might break more easily and the cardboard is subject to bending. In this example, you can see that the basis was made out of cardboard and when drying it bent a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but with EVA Foam you will not have this issue. And now we will start the build. The first step will be to draw the different shapes of your bases. In this example, I'm doing two circle shapes of 15 cm, and in the lower part of the sheet I will do a freeform basis. The next step will be to cut the basis. In order for the edges to look more natural, I will try to cut diagonally. Take your time during this step and make sure to keep any EVA leftovers. Here I'm using some leftovers in order to do the shape of the wall that I will want for my ruins. And this will become the inside part of the walls. It's not mandatory, but you can use some leftovers in order to do some elevation on your bases. One of the drawbacks of the EVA Foam compared to the XPS Foam is that it's quite difficult to do some texture on it. It's still somewhat working, but you will see that with XPS Foam it's working far better. So you can use this technique in order to do your walls if you want, but on my side I will always prefer to use individual bricks. I will link a video of Black Magic Craft on how to do those bricks out of foam. In order to attach the bricks, we'll simply use some Tacky Glue. For this step, I will use this baking sheet as it will prevent the glue from sticking to where you are working. For the walls, you will see that I'm doing some corners in order to add more stability, but it's not at all mandatory. And I will use some pins in order to keep them in place while it's drying. Next, I will glue some washers on the places I want to be modular. And this will be your current result after all these steps. If you want, you can glue the walls to the bases, but on my side I prefer to keep them modular. A small tip is to always keep a miniature next to you in order to make sure that you respect the scale. Now that the walls are all dry, we'll glue all the bricks. I will advise you to do only the first line, then you will use the table to make sure that it's perfectly leveled and you will leave it to dry. You can use this time to already prepare a batch of half bricks. The smaller bricks will be used at each line out of 2 in order to shift the bricks. Once the first row is fully dry, you can speed up the process and do all the remaining ones all together. To add some diversity in the build, I will use some bigger bricks in the corners. In order to do that, I will simply cut a quarter of the bricks. You can also add some cuts directly into the bricks in order to make them less similar one to each other. And once everything is glued together, it should look like that. I also made some standalone pieces in order to decorate the bases. And now we'll glue some sand in the inside part of the walls. In order to do that, I will first apply some Tacky Glue, and then I will use a wet brush in order to spread the glue. For this step, don't use your best brush, as any old one will do the trick. Next, I will apply some pinches of sand. Then I will leave it to dry. Once fully dry, you can apply a first coat of grey. If you like this build until now, please let me know in the comments. It will really help the channel. And if not yet done, you can also like the video and subscribe to my channel. And this will be the result after the first coat. And here you will see the result after the second coat. The next step will be to glue the static grass. For this, the process is exactly the same as with the sand. We will first apply the glue generously, And then we'll spread it with a wet brush. And then we will apply the static grass. Make sure to do this step above a recipient, like that you will make sure to recover any leftovers. And don't forget the edges of the bases. Leave it to dry for a few hours and this should be your result. If some parts are not covered properly, don't hesitate to do a second coat. But keep in mind that the more grasses you will put on the washer, the less strong the magnet will be. And honestly, on the next pieces I will do, I think I will not put any grass on the washer. And I will rather create a small weak piece that I will put on it when I'm not using any trees or decorative item. And after all the steps, your bases should look like that. And now it's time to improve those cheap palm trees. For the moment, we can clearly see that they are made of plastic, but will we quickly change that by applying 2 coats of brown. While not perfect, you can already see the difference. In order to continue to improve them, we'll use the dry brushing technique. For this technique, we will mix a bit of white in the same color that we use for the first coats. Here, you can see that I put too much white, so I added back some brown. And now, for this technique, we will use a flat brush, and then you will put some paint on the brush, and you will remove the excess on a paper towel. And then you will apply gently on the tree's trunk. Here, the idea is to not go into the recesses of the trunk, but rather to hit only the highest part. And here you can clearly see the difference after first coat of dry brush on the left. And now we will rinse and repeat this technique by adding more and more white in each coat. Here you have the result after a second coat of dry brush. For this technique, my advice is to do at least 3 coats of dry brushing, but the more you will do, the better the effect will be. And here you have the result after 3 coats. This technique is super easy to do, and you can clearly see the big difference between before and after. The next step will be to glue some magnet on each tree. For durability, I strongly advise you to use a hot glue gun for this step. And you can also glue a magnet on any piece that you want to be modular. While painting the trees, you can also do the edges of the bases. Don't worry if you put too much glue on the bases of the tree, because we will hide it with some static grass. Same technique as before, apply the glue and then spread it with a wet brush. And then apply the static grass. And this should be the result after all these steps. While I was at it, I also made this little box. Just to be safe, I put a magnet on it, even if this shape should be quite stable. If you are interested to see how I made this box, let me know in the comments and I will release a short about it. Now it's time to finish the ruins. For this, we'll use exactly the same techniques as for the trees, but this time with grey instead of brown. As usual, I will do 3 coats of dry brush, but you can go as high as 5 or 7 for an even better result. With this technique, the stonework will be already pretty good, but I will show you after another technique on how to improve it even better. Depending on the looks that you want to achieve, this step is not mandatory, but if you want to blend all the colors together, you can use a wash. To do a wash, you will simply mix a bit of black paint, a bit of water and a dip of soap. Then you will apply generously. Here, contrary to the dry brush, the idea is to put most of the wash into the recesses. Therefore, if you don't want the piece to be too dark, you can remove the excess with a paper towel. There is two benefits for the wash. First, it will blend all the colors together for a more realistic looks, but it will also add some shadows to your pieces. And this will be the result after all these steps. You can also use the wash on the trees, especially on the leaves. This step is not mandatory, but now I will directly glue some bricks on the basis. The idea is only to add a bit of stability to the runes just to be safe. And now that everything is dry, we'll do one final step. We'll glue some moss on the runes in order to give it an older and abandoned look. For this step, it's super easy. You will simply mix a bit of water with a bit of glue and some static grass. And then you will apply it all over the runes in the recesses. The idea is to also use it in order to hide all the small mistakes that you could have done. And this will be the final result for your runes. As you can see, those pieces are already pretty good on standalone, but they will be even better in combination with the bases. And here you have the final result. I will try to show you some modularity, but of course it will only depend on your own imagination to do any other modular pieces. If you have any other idea of decoration for this basis, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. And if you have watched this video until the end, I really want to thank you for your support. For this basis, I simply apply some sand and paint it brown before applying the static grass. And for this one, I use some XPS Foam for the basis and I paint it with the same technique as for the runes. Thanks again and see you next time!